So Liv was saying so many people in my field make the same complaint. I feel for them losing their jobs, but there's more to it than AI. Correct. Um, I feel for anybody who's lost their job. It's never a pleasant situation. But the reality is that the world we live in, um, there's a phrase, and I've mentioned this on stream before. There's a phrase in Mexico that I didn't understand until I had lived here for many years. Si no tranzas, no avanzas. If you don't cheat, you don't win. Now that sounds, if you're coming from like a North American English speaking country, that phrase sounds very callous and very, what? If I don't cheat, I don't win. I shouldn't cheat. I've been raised not to cheat. What that phrase really means is if you don't do the thing to get what's yours, someone else will. All right? If you're being passive, the aggressive person is going to take your opportunity. So if you don't cheat, you won't win. If you don't take life by the horns, someone else will. If you don't grasp opportunities when they are presented, you have no one to blame but yourself for your lack of success, for your failure, and everything else. I'm going to pause here because this will be a bit of a discussion, and I don't want to get hit by a horde while I'm in the middle of this. Fake it until you make it, says Dribrom. That's another great phrase, by the way. Um, and that ties into what I was just going to talk about. I'm going to timestamp this because this will be a great discussion on opportunities, is what we'll call this. Opportunities. Um, so years ago, when I had been living in Cancun for a while, I had met Chris. Chris and I were dating. I had a live-in assistant, so I had a guy who I had met through some colleagues. He came from Chicago and came and stayed with me in Cancun. He actually, I think Chris moved in while he was living with me, and he was my live-in assistant. And so he had rent, he had room and board, plus he made a percentage of all the sales on my products, all my ebooks and everything else. And that was when I was still selling like 40, $50,000 a year of books, and we had our Cancun guidebook, and we had tours and everything else we were doing. Um, so I was trying to grow my local business, and if I was the type of person who, blamed everyone else for my lack of opportunities, um, it would have been really easy to say, like as an example, I was, selling books, but I was also working on social media. And there's lots of other people working on social media. Do you need to go out, buddy? Um, can you wait a second? Because I'm in the middle of a conversation. Um, Really easy to say that, oh, there's so much competition on Facebook. I can't get work. There's so much competition on Instagram. How am I going to get through the noise? I do need to take care of this cat. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, woe is me, the competition, right? So here's what I did. Um, I printed up 3,000 business cards. Cost me a chunk of change, but I printed up 3,000 business cards. I gave 1,000 to Chris. I took 1,000 myself, and I gave 1,000 to my personal assistant. And then we went out, and we went physically to every hotel, to every restaurant, to every tour agency, to every tourism-related place that we could think of in Cancun. And then we went to Playa del Carmen, and then we went to Tulum. And over the course of about a month, in the blistering heat of summertime, we handed out 3,000 business cards. And we sweated our asses off, went door to door every single day. Um, Took us a couple of weeks to hand out all the business cards. Then I waited about a week and a half. Then we had not only gone out and handed out business cards to every single place, we had written down and took a notes of all the places we went to and got their contact points. And any contact points we couldn't find, we went online and found their contact point. We then followed up like a week or 2 weeks later. I don't remember the exact timeline. And we called, made phone calls. We sent emails, and that was my assistant and I, because Chris was doing other stuff at that time, and we spent about a month sending out emails and making phone calls and finding work. Um, and over the course of about a month, contacted over 3,000 businesses and had like a 90% rejection rate, but about a 10% success rate. And that 10% success rate allowed us to line up enough work for the next year and a half or so from 1 month of hustling. It would have been very easy for me to sit there and say it's someone else's fault. It's the market. It's the AI. It's the competition. It's the outsourcing. It's all of these reasons are the reasons why I'm not getting work. No. Put my hat on, put my sweat, put my bandana on. I sweat like a motherfucker in the heat and went out there and I went door to door and I made phone calls. It's also not the first time I've done that. I grew up in the era before the internet. So my construction company back in the day, this is pre-internet. I didn't have a website. I didn't have social media. This is pre-social media when I had my construction company. How did I get work? Went to a phone book, opened up the phone book, and I went and looked for local carpet shops and flooring companies, and I called and I said, "Hey, do you guys have any?" And they all have their guys, but what I'm looking for is an in. Hey, I know you guys have got, your own crew that you work with, but I'm just making a phone call here to say if you've ever got any extra, your guys can't cover it, you're looking for someone to do because one of your guys is sick or something, just give me a call. I'm available. I'll make it work. I'm looking for work. I'm hungry. I'm young. I'm hungry. Let's make this happen. Um, and then on Saturdays and Sundays in between projects, I would go in my truck and I would drive along the Front Range of Colorado and I would look for job sites. Specifically, I would look for any big construction projects and I would go and I would take my hammer tacker and I would tack my business cards on the uh, like you would find a building that was in construction and you would just tack your business card to like a stud, a wall stud or whatever. And then anytime you could find a job trailer that's open, you just walk in and you introduce yourself and who's the general manager? You're the general manager you're the general contractor. Hi, I'm so and so. This is what I do. I know you've already got a crew lined up. I'm not here trying to, just saying, here's my card. If you ever get any extra work, you need somebody to work on a Saturday or a Sunday, I'm here, willing to do what it takes. I'm young, I'm hungry, I'm 22 years old. Let's make this shit happen. Um, and you hustle. Every single day you hustle. But you do it in the right way. This comes back to that guy earlier who was trying to spam their stuff in chat. That's not the right way. You gotta do it the right way. Um, I have never lacked for work. I've never finished high school. I never went to college, and I have never lacked for work. I have been freelancing essentially since I was 20 years old. I started my first S corporation when I was 20, and I had two employees all throughout my 20s. Sometimes three, depended on the year, but usually two guys working for me. And I've always had my own business, and I've always just freelanced. I'm 45 now, so I've been working independently for 25 years essentially. Um, there is never a lack of work if you are someone who is willing to go out there, but you have to be willing to adapt to the times as well. Because um, going back to how when I had my construction company, there was no social media, there was no websites. But then when I got into the travel space and I was doing travel writing and stuff and writing travel guides and ebooks, it was very important that you have a website and social media. So I had to learn how to use a Facebook account. I had to learn how to use a Twitter account. I had to get those accounts. I had to learn how to set up a website. I had to learn PHP. I had to learn HTML. I had to learn WordPress and how to do WordPress programming so that I could install a WordPress theme onto my website so that I could run a website theme and have a blog and list my work and everything else. I had to learn photography. I had to learn how to use Photoshop. I had to learn how to use Lightroom for photo editing. I had to learn how to use video editing software so that I could work on videography and do all of my own video editing. So that started off with learning Sony Vegas Pro and then moving into Filmora. I had to learn how to do um, audio engineering and audio editing. I had to learn how to use that software. And so it's like every year or two you're having to learn some sort of new tool to remain relevant if you want to continue to get work. Because if you don't eat, you die. How do you eat? You pay for things with money. How do you get money? You work. Do you want to starve and live on the streets or do you want to work? That's what it's always come back to for me is the need to eat drives my need to evolve and keep up with the times. And eventually it'll get to the point where I can no longer keep up, where I no longer care to keep up. Um, you just have to, like Chris said, it's so much easier to be a victim because that's what narcissists do. It's easy to have the victim mentality. Woe is me, it's someone else's fault, blah, 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 blah. The reality is, no one is going to help you in life. No one. It's up to you to do it for yourself, which is why I come back to that phrase, si no tranzas, no avanzas. If you don't cheat, you don't win. It's not about cheating per se. It's about the mentality of that phrase is that if you don't take the opportunity, someone else will. So don't let those opportunities pass you by. You cannot afford to be the pacifist who sits in the back because those are the people who, they always blame someone else for their problems. You have to take control of your life, and if and you and only you are responsible. There's that phrase. I can't remember the exact phrase right now, but it's like only you are responsible for your reality. Like only you define your reality. I can't remember the exact phrasing. What essentially it means is that you define your reality by what you're willing to do to shape your reality. Um, and I realized that everybody's got different. This goes back to what we were talking about, earlier. Everybody's got different demons that haunt them, but the reality is that opportunities, it's good to feel empathy for people losing their jobs. Absolutely good to feel empathy for those people, but when those same people complain about how they're not willing to adapt to the new workplace requirements, or they're not willing to do the things that make them uncomfortable, like learn a new skill. I don't mean going out and doing something that would be against your morals. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm thinking about, um, I'm talking more about, doing something out of your comfort zone. Learning another language is an example. Learning a new skill set. It's not necessarily easy to learn um, a new software, a new tool, but if you want to be relevant in your workplace, you have to. Either that, or you're going to be a grocer at Walmart or a greeter at Walmart. And maybe you're okay with that. And if you're okay with that, cool. You have nothing to complain about. But I know most people have aspirations and dreams, and the only way that those aspirations and dreams come to fruition is if you go out there and seize those opportunities. Um, the world is what you make of it.